Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rare Book Cafe, the Coffee Break Edition. I'm Linn at the Ridge Books in Calhoun, Georgia, and joining me as usual today are my co-hosts, Richard Mori of Mori Rare Books in Nashua, New Hampshire, and Matt Whalon of Matt Whalon Books in Lakeland, Florida. Richard has just had has just had a show this past weekend that he was the organizer of. And how'd it go, Richard?
Well, Lee, hello again, and hello to Matt. It's good to have us all together. The show
Hello.
was the show was really good, and we're we're pleased with the outcome. We had a really big attendance this time. The floor was mostly full. We had antique dealers on one side and booksellers on the other, and Peter Luke came into town as he usually does, but he had just bought a mammoth collection. And boy, was he in a selling mood. He had one of his best shows ever. He was happy when he left. I bought a couple things from him. One I flipped immediately the next morning to the first dealer who looked at it. So I was happy, and I bought a couple things. This is a rare New Hampshire White Mountain piece from 1846. It's considered to be one of the very first guides of the White Mountains. One I'd never seen or had, pretty scarce and unusual. And little a little piece like this with a forward by Steinbeck and an introduction and an introduction by Charlie Chaplin.
That's
So
cool.
it and signed. So one of these little things, it's an innocuous looking piece, but a John Steinbeck uh, introduction in it, kind of neat. So, little things like that popped up and lots of other things. And we're looking forward to next year on June 6th.
And you have another one coming up in a couple of weeks, don't
In
you?
a couple of weeks in Boxborough, actually 10 days in Boxborough, Mass on June 20th, Saturday. With some more ephemera oriented. There'll be postcards and posters and photos and maps, um, and with some books, but it's a stronger ephemera show. So yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Good.
And busy, busy, busy. And guess what? I was thinking, where do books come from? We're always there isn't a show goes by. Where do you get your books? And my standard reply is every place, because that's basically true, no matter where I go. But I understand that Matt has stumbled into something that we should hear about. So tell us about it, Matt.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I could go for a while on this, but I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. And of course, if y'all have any questions, please feel free to break in. But it's kind of a two-part story almost, just because it's the second time that my friend locally here, Finley Walker, and I, with Inkling's Bookshop, have sort of interacted with regard to a large collection. And the last one he took the lead on a few years ago, where we cleaned out a lady's house in Lutz, Florida, and bought her whole collection. Only problem with that collection, it was a lot of great nonfiction, historical books and such. She had 8 cats, and so the bottom two shelves of every bookcase pretty much in that house were close to unusable.
Oh,
And that kind of gave us a little bit of pause because it took years to sell all of those books. It was a real headache in some ways, but we're, obviously younger people in the book profession, and we're kind of getting our feet wet with some of this stuff. And so Finley actually reached out to me a couple of weeks ago about an opportunity that he had heard about from another dealer here in Florida. So definitely the whole networking thing there, extremely valuable for this type of a situation. And I was told that there was an 83-year-old man in Northport, Florida, who was looking to simply part with all of his books. And I didn't know much about it except that he had, I was told, 5,000 books. He had actually counted them all, hand counted. 5190 was the total that he advised us of. And that is the number that is actually present ultimately in the enormous three-ring blue binder inventory that he gave me that's printed out on paper that I had to have scanned. It was a crazy situation. But one of those things where you just sort of reach out to the man with the phone number provided. You don't know if he's ever going to reply back. He didn't answer my calls. He finally texted me back, and he just made it plain. He wanted this stuff gone. He's moving into an assisted living facility. And so my friends and I, Finley, my other colleague, Matt Harris of Harris Vintage Books in Newport Richey, we all got together and essentially the idea was that I would be taking on the vast majority of these, but we would be splitting anything that we found of particular value here. And once again, the man did not want any sort of compensation. He simply wanted this stuff gone. It became a lot easier when my father lives down in Northport, so it actually made it easier to get some additional help there. Got down, got a U-Haul. My daughter came to help as well, and took probably close to 15 hours all told to load everything up over the span of a few days and get it all transported back here to Lakeland, and also unload it into my storage unit, which is presently bursting at the seams.
So you must have found a couple interesting things. Tell us more.
Yeah, no, that was the crazy part, was the fact that the pictures he gave us were showing things like stacks of books on the floor, just on the floor, 6 feet high, along with multiple bookcases. And so we were concerned about condition. But this guy actually was extremely careful with all of his books. He even kept things like sales receipts from 25 years ago in these books. So historical fiction, mystery, science fiction, general fiction, that was the vast majority of the books involved, along with a few things that I know that you like, Richard, including the man apparently had a long career in the Boy Scouts. So actually, there were several Boy Scout related books, including this one. And I've personally been to Philmont Scout Ranch. This one was actually presented to him without giving his name on camera. He actually was provided with this as an award for his performance in terms of being a scout recruiter back in the 90s. And again, science fiction fantasy, he was one of those people who quite literally buys everything that a certain author has ever written. So, for example, Robert Jordan, huge Robert Jordan fan, clearly. We have some wonderful things like a full run of The Wheel of Time, including first editions. The Conan Chronicles, also a very nice book there. Historical fiction, really quite a treasure trove there. The original dealer that I had gotten this information from was actually, that was what he was interested in once we come across some of it. But like, for example, authors like Douglas Riemann, the man has everything this guy ever wrote. C.S. Forester, Dudley Pope, who is the author of something called the Ramage series. Again, Napoleonic Wars, big theme here. Very much Horatio Hornblower type of stuff, all of that, as well as things like Bernard Cornwell, who wrote the Sharp series about an officer fighting in the Napoleonic Wars. So just tons of general stock on that front. He kept everything you can imagine in shockingly good condition for the most part. No issues with environmental damage, pets, anything like that. Extremely organized for the most part. The only problem is that a lot of them are ex-library, and there were a lot of paperbacks, which are obviously harder to do something with. But for the most part, I anticipate that this will be one of those things that takes me probably weeks, if not months, to go through. And I would love to get any advice that you folks have as far as which genre you tend to see is doing the best right now for you.
Well, it can be a variety of things. It also depends on where you are. Certainly, the sci-fi fantasy material is really strong right now, and I know that's an area you enjoy. The historical fiction should do really well. Romance, I mean, he probably didn't have much, but romance is a very strong area right now. I don't think, Lee, you don't handle much of that kind of material, right?
No, mine's mostly a good bit older. Like recently, the things that I've been selling the most of have been African American and some. And if I had a little run on local historical books, like a book I sold today was a church history from Marietta, some stuff
Yeah.
like that. Um, but one thing that you said that you had whole runs of various authors, and being able to advertise that,
Hmm.
you could even offer special deals if you take the whole run.
I was thinking of that potentially as like an auction, maybe even with the local people that I do business with.
Yeah,
David Weber, Harry Turtledove, Mercedes Lackey, Orson Scott Card, you name it. This guy's got every, major science fiction writer, Timothy Zahn from the 90s, early 2000s, late 80s, and the historical fiction side all the way back to the 60s. Many of these authors have been writing. So
Uh,
he
did
tracked
he
everything down.
did he have Kenneth Roberts?
I haven't seen any so far. He
Yeah.
seemed to really favor the British authors, especially. Lots
Okay.
of things inside of his books from thrift books and bookshops in the UK, where he tracked down original copies of the series that he was looking for.
No kidding. Interesting.
well,
Well,
that
that sounds
will
like
be
a
interesting. And
there's always fascinating things in a large collection like that. But there's also a lot of fluff in that kind of material. So I'm expecting you might want to start doing some flea markets and just bang some of that stuff out,
yeah,
I,
at
I completely
a buck or two a book.
I completely agree with you. I've actually already, and this is a part of the networking thing that I mentioned, I've reached out to virtually every physical bookstore in the area and said, hey, I mean, let's be honest with each other. There's going to be a lot of stuff here. I didn't pay for these books. I paid for labor. I paid for the storage. I paid for time, but I don't actually have anything right now in the books themselves. So anything I can get for them, even in the form of, say, store credit with another physical bookstore, is pure profit on my part, which is
Yeah,
really quite a nice thing to have, especially as I unearth more from the 50 or so large boxes that are still in my
yeah,
storage unit.
yeah.
So that's the plan, is to bring literally van loads of stuff over to shops that are interested in picking up some of this stuff.
and it's so
Well,
much fun to go through a big hall like that and find things you just had no idea. I know a number of years ago, the guy who was in charge of the restorations at Barnsley Gardens down in Adairsville, which is was a never finished plantation and gardens, and he had come there from Swarthmore as the head horticulturalist, and he had a big collection, and he was leaving Barnsley and going to Florida, and he wanted to get rid of it, and called us, and it was stuff that normally we didn't really deal with, but uh, we picked out a few things we did want, and Bob said, well, we'll give you this for this pile over here, and or so much for the whole thing. And he started loading them in the van before we could ever even get the check written. He was so glad to get rid of them. And I still have some of those, but over the years, there have been surprising things in there, that somebody wanted the pears of New York, things like that. Uh,
Yeah.
so that's a lot of fun to find out. Gee, I never thought this would sell.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah,
And I would love to actually get y'all's opinion on something else that would be sort of in the same vein, which is a prospective acquisition or even multiple acquisitions down the line. One thing I'm seeing a lot here in Florida lately is that people are putting up a lot of estate sales or just on Facebook or other platforms of large collections of the leather-bound style books, Easton Press, Franklin Library, things
yeah,
like that.
they're
And
everywhere.
yeah, and what's interesting about it is the fact that they seem, especially lately, to be showing up in very large quantities. Like there was an estate sale in Lakeland just last week, um, around the same time that I was dealing with this collection down in Northport. And at the time, they had about 85 books for about $700. And at the time, that didn't seem like a bad deal given the price per book, right? And then ultimately, that lot sold for about $1,600. And I was talking with Finley about this, and it just seems like once you get past a certain price point, maybe like $20 a book or so in terms of what you pay for them, those Eastons just really don't resell well in terms of the profit you can make off of them. Would you all agree with that?
Yeah, you got to be careful what you pay. There is a point of diminishing return on that kind of material. Uh,
and even
but
the signed ones. you know, some people's attitude is, well, that's not a real signed,
Yeah.
prescription.
Well, in the Franklin and the Eastern, they will be real. That
Yeah.
there's little doubt, I think, on those. But there are other times where you've got to watch your signatures.
Yeah. And the other thing I would just point out, as far as one book that I have already sold from the collection, that is I've noticed is that even with book club editions, which the gentleman had a lot of as well, it seems like that as long as the book clubs of some of those vintage sci-fi and similar type of books are the same original cover, that they still retain a good portion of the value from what people are
Yeah, they
looking for
will.
in the
It
trades.
depends on title and author.
Yeah,
But there are book clubs that can be worth some money.
I thought
Yeah,
you would like to see this one.
yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
the book club, but it can be worth a little bit more than just a normal, book club of, that might sell for $5 or $10. Some of those are going to sell for 25, 50, even 100.
Well, we'll be looking forward to hearing more about this as you go through it. Pull out the things that are really of interest and let us know about them, and we'll do this again.
Well, yeah, this was interesting. It's good to
Yeah.
see you venturing out into these collections. The one rule in the business is if you don't handle a lot of books, you're not going to learn very much. Handling books is really important. I don't know. I'm counting the books I've looked at over the years in the tens of millions at this point. You know, so
I think we lost Matt.
Did we? Oh, I can't. I don't see
Okay.
that. Oh, yeah, we
Well,
did lose them. So,
anyway, thanks for being with us today, everyone, and we'll look forward to our next report from Matt.
and we will see you down the road, Lee.
That's right.
We've
That's
got.
right.
Not only do I have Boxborough, I'm going to be in Cooperstown, New York, at the end of June, and of course Brimfield in July, and I may actually end up missing Maine this year because there seems to be a conflict with Brimfield. I'm really disappointed in that one.
And you would not miss Brimfield.
No,
No, we know.
Brimfield takes priority.
And Ed might show up with ice cream.
Well, there is that possibility.
That's right. Well, everyone, thanks for being with us. Rare Book Cafe is available on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, and as a podcast, wherever you get your podcast. And we are brought to you in part by the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair. And hope that if you have ideas about the show, please let us know. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.
All right.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.